Or Chamonix, man. We got some nice views over here.
Nice, dude.
I'm at a
Beautiful.
hockey rink in Chamonix in the summer.
Yeah, you bastard, I hate you.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Hello, everybody. So anybody that's just joined us, I have the magnificent Aleron with me for a change. It's wonderful to have him. Good friend of mine, and we're just going
Good
to
friend.
basically shoot the shit and talk about books and any questions and shit anybody gives us. But that bastard has already won this because if you look in the background there, he's in Chamonix in
Chamonix.
the Alps in France. That's
Hiking.
the goddamn Alps in the
It's
background.
part of the whole less face on the face thing, so that's cool. Yeah.
You have lost a lot of face.
Shoot, dude. I mean, what is it in your parlance? It'd be I've lost about 6.5, 7 stone. Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Dude, that is incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I need to lose a bit of weight, but
No, you're
7.
golden. You're beautiful. You're perfection. You're
No,
golden.
I do. I have managed to convince my eldest boy, Max, that the reason I have no hair is because I
Yeah.
got up so fast one morning that I went through it and it stuck to my chin instead.
Yeah.
So now when he gets up
I see.
very slowly. So
Yeah.
I'll have to pick someone else to wind him up about next.
My mom told me the reason she had no hair was because I was such a horrible child. And I said, but you have hair. And she goes, that's because I'm better than you. And that was the whole story. It was.
Nice. She's clearly subtle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, no, there's about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Yeah. It's a whole thing. People are like, but your mom is so nice. That's game. What are you doing? Oh my gosh. But yeah, man, how's the writing? Because we've known each other since we were early gunslingers, right? Like,
Yeah, well,
and the world has changed. We've changed. The genre
God,
has
yes.
changed. It's kind of crazy. I'm
It's
glad we're
it's
still standing.
incredible how much it's changed. I mean, when we first started talking was six years ago now, and
Yeah.
Aleron, for those who don't know, I'll just very quickly. Aleron had just released a couple of his books. I found, I think, 3 of the books were out at this point, and I found them,
Yeah.
and I
It's
was
early.
working in IT. I hated my goddamn life, and I reached out to this fucker because I'd read these books and I was working in London, and I messaged him and just said, "Look, I didn't expect any kind of response. It's like I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your books. I was going through a really shitty time, and they really helped me. So thanks very much." And he reached back, and this guy, top class author already at this point, already making an absolute killing, and he reached out of the blue and sort of reached back for me and asked me if I was all right, and we had sort of little conversations now and then. And you told me to try writing as therapy.
Yeah.
And my doctor at the time was telling me the same thing, and my wife kind of went, "Just fucking do something. I don't care what you do. Just stop being a nutter." And
Yeah.
that's how I got started. So anybody that I have abused through my books over the last sort of 5 years, I hold you
Yeah.
responsible for, dude.
No, I mean it is. I mean, like we've both gotten better mental health, but we only do it by drinking the
Massively.
blood of our prey, and that's just science. I mean, that's not our
Oh yeah.
fault at all. Really, that's just. But no, man. I mean, like that's my story too. Like I started writing my first books, and I never thought anybody would read them. I knew nothing about being an author. Knew nothing. I didn't know what an indie author existed, let alone
Mm-hmm.
meant, let alone how to be one. It was more just like I've got some fucked up shit inside of me because life is hard, and I'm a man who was processing it the best way I could,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it saved me. I mean, and like I love that like it's had such a positive role, in your own life, because it ripples out to our loved ones, right? It
It
really
does.
does.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to see the effect, but it's also it's the thing that you pay it forward as well. You pay it forward, you pass it on. It's a case
Yeah.
of people reach out and you help wherever you can, and it's nice to be. It's amazing. I mean, I've got to say, from my position, from earning pretty much minimum wage, retraining in IT, thanks to lung
Yeah.
damage, and now sort of being at the other end of the scale, where not the
This
other end of the
guy.
scale, but where we're comfortable, and it's like life is good, and it's I
You get
look
to fly
around
your
and say, how
mother-in-law around,
much?
which means you're flying everybody around. That's amazing. The
Exactly.
points. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really know. I mean, I was just looking forward to talking tonight, but like, I didn't really know we were
Yeah.
going to get on the mental health tip. But I think it's
Ooh.
important. I think there's too much. shame and for like a lot of men, not just, I mean, it's tough all around, but let's just talk about like us, we're two men. Like there's a lot of shame in needing help, let alone
Yeah,
asking for help, right? And yet so
massively.
many of us need it, like when I was just at Dragon Con, we were, Geneva, everyone's like throwing that lit RPG under the sea thing. And I was able to like sort of touch base with these various authors. And we were just sort of able to carve off a couple of minutes. And like no less than 5 men, like kind of started getting a little misty eyed because it's like, they're like, I'm just fucking stressed, dude. Like, what if the next one doesn't sell? What if the next one, blah, blah, blah. What if I just put my family? What if, and I'm like, yo, man, like, it's okay. And like the misty eye came just by being like, dude, like it's okay. Like you're not a piece of shit. Like it is okay to not be perfect all the time. Catch up with you later. I gotta drop this off. My phone's dead. All right, cool. All right, cool. I'll talk to you. Some mountain buddies. But yeah,
It,
like it's not easy.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
especially, I don't know how it is for yourself, obviously, the American side of things, but here, have you ever seen the film Billy Elliot or heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I live is the northeast of England, okay? It's very much, don't you tease me, Jay. I like being harassed. The
Yeah.
northeast of England, so it's primarily mining and shipbuilding area. And in the late 80s, early 90s, they basically, the unions tried to pick a fight with the government, and the government
Yeah.
made sure to destroy the unions in the area and destroyed
Mm-hmm.
the mines and everything else to basically maintain control of the rest of the country and to prove
Yeah.
that nobody should fuck with them. And it
Yeah.
worked. But the downside of that is it totally trashed the Northeast economy.
Yeah.
And so we have this massive group of people who were either military, were miners, were sort of that kind of very much background where you just put up, you just do what you do. I definitely can't dance, trust me on this,
No.
Bill. But this is the kind of environment that we're growing up in, and we're told, oh, your mother's always saying, no, of course, if you're upset, cry, talk, do all this. But every single male influence in your life is saying, you don't cry, you're male, you
don't
can't
do it.
cry, you feel no emotions.
No. Ever.
Yeah. Now, and then the reason I mentioned Billy Elliot is that is set about 5 miles away from where we are. So the atmosphere, the way that, I mean, he wants to be a dancer, which never really, I've got to say, I never really felt an urge to go that way. I have no natural rhythm whatsoever.
It's not really the thing.
No, definitely not. But it's the atmosphere, the way that he talks to sort of his parents, like, I want to be a dancer. And the dad's like, the
fuck are you talking
that,
about?
like,
Yeah.
That kind of that's the way it is in the Northeast. Originally, it was for emotions. You're like, no, me big manly man, 15 pints and then we'll go to work. That kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And saying that, no, actually, I'm not all right. I need help. That you've got mental health issues, that you're depressed, that you're anxiety, that you're hurting.
Yeah.
And so many people are so terrified to admit it because it's less manly, and it's you're not writing that. I do write angry. There's a lot of stuff in my book, so my editors tend to send it back to me and go, "Who hurt you? What's wrong with you that you like this?" And I'm like,
Stuff is wrong.
mm-hmm.
No, but I hear what you mean. It's like you don't talk about it, and yet, what I found interesting is that we glorify warriors, right? Which we should, to a certain extent, but we always know that like the veterans, the ones that have actually been through it, the ones that have actually survived, that have actually kept fighting, right? Like every one of them, we already knew were they weren't like just swinging their dick around. They weren't just doing like trying to like prove. Those are the ones that really, when it went down, you could trust because they were calm, because they processed, because of whatever. So we already had like the lingo of, we know we glorify men that have been able to survive horror, but we never really question like how did they do it? Like what are the mechanisms you sort of like put into place to like sort of knock it out, right? And I think one of the interesting things now is that like we're kind of taking that glorification, we're making it more acceptable to like discuss, right? Which I think is going to make better warriors, personally. Like I'm a big believer, like you need a man to be strong enough to fight, to protect, whatever, because there's so many horrible people out there, right? But it doesn't just happen. You're not just born like that tough,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's one of those things. The people that I know a couple of guys that are ex SAS, So our
Hmm.
special air services, which is sort of like the top end of our
Yeah.
military chain. They're the very best of the elite, and
Yeah.
they are the nicest people you will ever meet.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's no ego in. I don't need to prove myself. I don't need to stand up and go rah because I can kill
Yeah.
everybody in here with a toothpick. It's
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
like no, I am just me. And there's that
Yeah.
self effacement of, but I'm just me. So tell me about your life. And impressive people,
It
genuinely
is.
impressive people.
It's funny, like my girl, like, so we've been meeting up with people that are like, out here that are really about this like nature life that, they're jumping off of mountains every day and paragliding. They're, climbing with like, two broken fingers, like real manly men, like tough dudes,
Yeah,
right? But when you sit down with them at the end of the day, same thing. They're like, they're just chill, they're peaceful, they're whatever. And I think some of it is like you just like you've lanced a lot of that uh aggression that is just part of
yeah,
us, right?
it
Even
is.
my girl, like she complains a little bit about like, oh my god, I don't want to do this hike, but then she's like, that was the best sleep I ever had, and I'm like, there might be something
Yeah,
connecting those two things. Um, but yeah, like when you don't, when you have confidence, when you have something that's actually like happy in your life that you can be proud of, you don't feel the need to beat your chest because you living is making enough noise.
yeah,
But like sort of the rallying cry for this phase of my life is like winning with health, which is something you don't appreciate when you're younger because you're just a stiff cock walking around every day. Like if you fall over, it just immediately pops you back up. Like that's basically
yeah.
all that happens.
It just
Um,
bounces.
yeah, but like you get older and like real talk, like 40 is a weird age. It's the age where like random people just didn't wake up some days and you're just like, well, that's
Yeah,
messed up.
yeah,
And then just a lot of dudes, you look at them and you're like, man, dude, in high school you were the man, homie. Like what
yeah.
happened? Like, dude, it's tough. Um, so like I don't know. I don't think it's the kind of thing that needs to be harped on, but it's also not the kind of thing that needs to be like hidden away. Like life is
Mhm.
tough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm finding that it's strange for me because I'm in my 40s. For me, when I had the damage to my lungs, part
Hmm.
of the effect of it was that I was this big man, and I was physically,
Yeah.
I was a lot bigger than I am now because I was a welder, so I was carrying a lot of steel all day, and I was lifting steel all
Yeah.
day, and it was good, and I
Yeah.
liked that self-image, I really did, because it
Yes.
was like, hey. But then
You're
coming
manly.
out of that, exactly.
Yeah.
But when I came out of that and found that I couldn't exercise the way I had or anything else, and I lost muscle mass and I put fat on
Yeah.
and all of it, and I'm not bringing in any money to the house. My wife's
Hmm.
working twice as hard to do overtime to do all of this.
Yeah.
And our lives were so different. And it was horrible for a little while. But then I found out afterwards, because I was trying to work in IT. And working in IT, the one of the big things you can't do, which you can do in welding, is when people are idiots, you can't punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And you can do
Yeah.
that whenever you want in welding. That's totally acceptable. So
Yeah.
there's a massive difference there, which is a very important lesson I learned. Um, but it's also one of those situations where I found out that I had sleep apnea, which I
Hmm.
had no clue I had. And for those who don't know, what sleep apnea is, that basically you stop breathing when you're asleep.
Yeah. It's
And
weird.
you just literally stop breathing. And my wife was timing me, and it was getting to like over a minute that I wasn't breathing, and this was all through the night. So we did some tests. Yeah, I know, I really am. We did some tests on it afterwards, and it turned out I was sleeping for about 7 minutes a night of real sleep,
Hmm.
and everything
Yeah.
else was just this interrupted sleep where my brain was starved of oxygen. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
learn IT at this stage, and I'm up against these kids who are 17, who are in the apprenticeship program, who know it all instantly. And I'm just like, oh, I'm thick, I'm useless, I'm fucking, oh, God.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really weird. And now you're like, I've got a mask, which is ridiculous. I look like Darth Vader when I go to bed. But
Yeah.
God, I wake up and I'm like, this is
Oh my
great.
God, I feel like a normal person, right?
Yeah,
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the whole thing about like me having like moved to Europe, just eating clean food for the first time in 42 years, where I'm like, oh, like it's not like a 50-50 coin toss when I go to the bathroom if I have to beg God for forgiveness for things I don't even know that I did wrong. You know, like, do I have to sweat every time I sit on the toilet? Surprisingly, I don't. Like, it's kind of a crazy thing, you know? Um, And
I really didn't need that mental image.
I mean,
Oh God.
I'm just, I'm trying to be as real as I can for people because it's tough. It's tough. Toilet paper is not made out of chili peppers. I just thought it
Yeah.
was for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's actually kind of soft. Yeah. So, JD, I moved to Portugal. I live in Porto now. Like right now, I'm in France. But yeah, man. But no, I mean, it is the kind of thing, and it's the kind of thing where I was actually realizing that, like, we focus on physicality because that's what we can see, and
Yeah.
we now have normalized mental health, right? Like that's not a scary thing anymore, even though we
Yeah.
still shame it in a lot of cultures. But what we're not really talking about is emotional health, right? Which is the kind of thing that like makes us hate our significant others or never really help our boys, even if we see them floundering or any of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's the kind of thing that if we did bring it in, and now that I am, it's not taking up more of my time. It's not making me less efficient. Like I'm way more efficient. Like the reason that I didn't put a book out for 4 years is I just was feeling off. I didn't have a better way to say it. I didn't know how to fix it, but I was like, I can't keep going this way. It feels like crap. Uh,
Mhm.
so I figured some stuff out. Luckily, I was able to, like, Mounjaro came out. I feel like that's the miracle drug over time, which is not a recommendation from an MD. Let me be very clear about that. You guys are going to sue me. Um, but like between that and learning more about like other places that I can live and getting into a healthy relationship, blah, 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 it's like one thing built on another that now I feel like I'm this like version of myself that's not even like feeling better, right? It's a
Yeah.
whole different existence. It's like saying I'm an evolved version of who I was 5 years ago. You know,
Mhm.
it's crazy, and that's lets the writing flow, right? It
Yeah.
lets me, I don't know, accurately look at interactions that I'm having with other people, which is really really cool. Enjoy my life a lot more. It's dope. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. It's weird when you realize that you've been carrying this baggage around with you for years that just
you know,
builds up until the point where
yeah,
you're everything you're reacting with is with all of this on your back. And then
yeah,
suddenly you start to clear some of that shit away and you're like, oh, how
yeah.
different is all of this?
How different is it? Bill Burr has got this like amazing. I don't know. I don't think it's. I think it might be at the like at Red Rocks where like he's talking about how like he always loses his top, and his wife is like, I don't know where this came from. You went from 0 to 100. He goes, first of all, I live at 90, and then he
Yes.
just goes on this whole like diatribe for 30 minutes about how like his funny way about how he just internalized all this like trauma and stuff from his dad and like how he just got beat up a bunch and blah 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 until like it's 30 minutes have passed and then he just sort of brings it back and he goes, and maybe that's why I lose my temper sometimes and it's not cool, but like
Yeah.
da da da. And it's like, yeah, dude, like life is tough. When I was younger, if I heard about something bad that happened to somebody, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. That's fucking crazy, right? Um, but it's like if I hear about something bad happening to somebody now, I'm like, oh, that's what happened to Jack? Like I knew something was gonna happen. But like
Yeah.
it sucks that was the thing. You wish it was something a little bit better. But it's like it's tough, right? Like it's weird. Richie, thanks for coming out,
See you,
dude.
Richie, my dude.
Um, yeah, but I don't know, man. Like I like to share this kind of stuff because I think there's a lot of people that are suffering. And if they see
Mhm.
people that they like that look more or less happy now, that feel like you're not a weak little Nancy failure because you need some help,
Yeah.
then maybe they get a little help too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically. So it's something that, as we said before, I was taught that it's a weakness. It's you're less of a person
Mm.
if you need to do this. And then I'll see you later, GD. Thanks, man. But then my wife is the exact opposite end of the scale in that she has supported me like nobody else, and I'm incredibly lucky to have her. And I know that she won't be listening to this, so I can get away with saying that. While if she was listening to this, I would deny it entirely, and it was definitely I could
Yeah.
never give her the satisfaction because we're married and we have to wind each other up at all times.
Yes, obviously. That's healthy too.
Because
Yes.
yeah, you have to have that little bit. And she's had
Yeah.
me digging in the garden all day today, so a little bit of payback. So,
That's what we call it.
so
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
So, dude, we see mental health is a massive, massive thing, but you are also physically much, much healthier. You're living your life.
Yeah,
You've moved from America to Porto, you're saying. You're living
yeah,
the life there. You're loving it.
I love it. It's awesome, right? Like things are cheaper. People mind their own business. Being an African American, I have my people have a very, very long, horrible history with like police, and in Portugal, that's not a problem. Like I feel like I'm making them feel uncomfortable because like the first time I saw them, I was like, hello, and they're just like, hi, you want to shake my hand, and like it's so that's very different. Being able to be free from the politics of the U.S., which is just a shit show, no matter who you like, is just utter garbage and ridiculousness. And then honestly, like eating clean food. If you live
Mm.
somewhere beside the U.S., you think that you have no idea what I'm talking about. But like just being able to eat food that is actually in line with what my biologic ancestors ate, as opposed to the fake food that
Yeah.
exists in the U.S. Like it's everything. I think clearer. I don't hurt myself when I go to the bathroom. I lose weight naturally. I have
Mm.
more energy. Like I just run now. Like that's something that I do. Like that's crazy. Um, I don't know, man. Like four out of five out of 330 million Americans are classified as obese. There is a reason for that. It's not because we're on Indian burial ground. We're not all cursed. Like there's something else going on. I
Yeah.
mean, that's not the reason we are, uh but yeah, no, I mean like dude, so yeah, it just it's the easiest way I can say it is if you were like, "Hey man, I'm trying to keep this plant alive and it's dying." And I'm like, "Well, how much sunlight and water are you giving it?" And you're like, "What's sunlight and water?" That's how it feels moving to Portugal. It's like,
It,
yeah, I feel better because I'm eating clean food and exercising. Like, who knew?
so
Yeah.
you're basically saying idiocracy. The,
Idiocracy. Idiocracy is the most. So anybody who's watching, if you have not seen Idiocracy, you will be
it is
terrified
terrifying.
after
Yeah.
you watch it. Because when I watched it, I don't know, 15 years ago, it was hilarious. But when you
Yeah.
watch it now, you're like, oh no.
Yeah. This wasn't supposed to be a
Like
documentary.
this was
This was
not
like, oh
supposed to
God.
be, yeah, realistic. This was not supposed to be the Nature Channel putting out the movie Idiocracy. Um, but it's so just like in line. And it makes you wonder, is that exactly how it's going to pan out? Because it's predictive. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough.
See,
Yeah, the shoes in those movie Arc Rocks. Yeah, that's also, yeah, very very accurate. Like it's um anyway, man. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. Like somebody I was my buddy, the guy that I was waving to, like I've known him for 20 years. He's actually who one of the inflection points that brought me out to Europe. And he's out here now with his son who's 18, who I've known that guy from like 5. And that's something that makes you feel old.
yeah.
Seeing babies that are now adults, that makes you feel
Yeah.
old as hell. Um, but he's a cool dude, man. He's 18, his son. And we're talking about it. And we were talking about something over like, I don't know, maybe like our 7th bottle of wine as we play Scrabble, making up words. And I was talking about how like, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I want to take care of me. I want to take care of mine. And I
Mhm.
ideally want to leave the world a slightly better place when I've kicked this rock, right? And he goes, what, you want to save the world? And I was like, I do. At the end of the day, like I do. I want to save the world. I have no earthly idea how to do it at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like if maybe I can leave the world this much better, I'll be cool with it, right? And it feels easier doing it now that I'm healthier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's way easier being healthier here than there.
Hmm.
You know?
I mean, I haven't been to America a great many times, like 4 times, 5 times, and
Yeah.
it's every time I've been over, it's like Jesus Christ, this is the food. It's
Yeah.
the portions are
Yeah.
so large
Oh my
compared to in
god.
Europe, but in the
Yeah.
UK, we're going towards the same size portions, and we don't have quite as much crap in the food, but we're not far off. We're
Yeah.
going in that direction, and it's getting harder and harder to find anything that isn't. Like,
I'm not gonna
well,
lie,
thankfully,
man.
we haven't
Like
got chlorine washed chicken, but fuck me.
the more I'm hearing about the UK is it's sort of the relationship between Georgia and Florida. The best thing Georgia can say is well, thank God we're not Florida. And it seems like the best thing the UK can say is like, well, at least we're not the US. Like,
Yeah,
but that's it's not a great bar. Like
it
it's
really
not an
isn't.
aspirational bar. You know, like it's sort of a problem. Um, I saw that my buddy sent me this thing, or it was this African American woman who'd started traveling internationally about 8 years ago, and she was basically making the point that when she first started traveling, she was like, oh, she went to Thailand and she saw like their metro system. Was like, oh my god, it's like they're living in the future. And then she went to like like Singapore, and she went to France, and she went to this. She was like, oh my god, look at their agriculture. It's like they're living in the future. And it was only like after like 7 years, she goes, these people are actually not living in the future. We've been living in the past. Like it's 2024. If you told me that we could teleport, I'd be like, yeah, that's on brand. Some
Yeah,
nerd has been working on that. I'm not. I believe you that is possible as long as you show it to me, right?
yeah,
So making food that doesn't hurt you is not in the future.
yeah.
It's I don't know.
I was
Yeah,
when we went to I went to a 20 books to 50K meetup in Madrid, and
yeah,
using the Madrid metro system is just incredible because it's like they took our system that we've got in the UK and they went, you know what, this is shit. Let's just redo the whole thing, and it
yeah,
works. It's on time. It's cheap. And it's clean, and it's running at about, when we were there, certainly, it was running at about 10% capacity, and that was the
yeah,
normal. You have some times
yeah,
where it's like, rush hour and it's packed out,
yeah,
but beyond that, it runs at about 10% capacity normally.
yeah.
Here in the UK, our normal situation is that it runs at about 60% capacity, and then rush hour and so on like that, it's just, oh, well, never mind.
Yeah.
That's not the way to run things.
And then you're just kind of screwed. And I mean that's the thing, right? Like we have this. There's so many interests, right? Which I get. That's I'm not mad at people for getting theirs. I'm not a tree hugger, right? Like I love trees, but um, there's a great quote where it's like, you want to save trees, make a living tree worth more than a dead tree. And I believe that. I'm not a big believer in trying to preach to people just to go against self-interest. I think we should create environments where self-interest is also aligned with greater interests. That's
Yeah.
effective. Um, but I don't know. It sort of feels like we're partying because we feel like by the time the cops get called, the house will be trashed and we can just leave. Like that's not a
That's
great
not really a
model.
plan for your life, is it?
It's not a great plan for your model. It's not a great plan for your life. It's certainly not a great plan for the next generations. Um, like a lot of the politicians are trying to reach out to, like, I guess it's called Gen Z now, which is younger than us, which are millennials, and they're like, you're the ones that are going to fix it. And it's like, so a generation above us is telling two generations down that, like, first of all,
They need to
don't count
fix
on
it.
us. And these
Yeah,
guys, eh. But
yeah.
you guys should. We're gonna keep partying. Um, I don't know, dude. It's a little grim sometimes. It's like, what do you do? Try not to think about it. It's weird. All I've basically been able to come up with is try to be healthy myself. Try to make my tribe healthy. Try to educate myself about maybe inspiring people to do a little bit better. Right? It's where I
Mhm.
share like TMI, too much information. I share that. Right? To be like, hey, if nothing else, maybe I can make you stop hating yourself. That might save the world if you're the right dude. Maybe you'll be nicer to the next person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I go on these hikes in the morning, and there's cable cars, and I usually stop. And I'm allergic to sunlight, which is one of the weirdest things about me. I'm like a vampire. I break out in hives. I take 3 injectables a month because I'm allergic to sunlight. It sucks.
Jesus, dude.
It's really, really weird. But I stand out in the sunlight because I wave at the cable cars as they go by, and a lot of times people wave back and they're so excited that somebody's waving at them. People like it when you wave at them. And I was hiking with my girl today, and she was like, "Babe, why do you wave at them?" And I'm like, "Because I don't know how to fix the world, but
Yeah.
I think that if I inject joy in moments where it wasn't before, or if I try to help a dude who's having a hard day when nobody else is, maybe aggregate, if there's other people doing the same thing, when it really comes like judgment day, and I don't even
Mhm.
mean religiously, I mean like when it really comes where it's like, is that fucking scientist going to open the vial of smallpox or not? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe be waving to these people meant that somebody else isn't going to fire somebody, which means that he's going to raise somebody nice, which means that she's going to blow this dude, which means that he won't open the vials. I don't know. I don't
So
know.
what we're
But
saying really
it's the
is that
best that I've come
if
up
you
with.
wave to people, somebody else will get a blowjob, and then if we're really, really lucky,
And I will
nobody will die
and
because of
I
that
will
blowjob.
ultimately save the world. That's what I'm saying. The one thing I do know is that blowjobs are going to save the world or destroy it. I just know that
Well,
one way or the other.
I've always been a
Absolutely.
massive believer, right? That if you look at it, right, all war comes down to not enough sex. So all these
If
forms, because
you're
if you think about
fucking,
it,
you're not swinging an axe. Usually, it's very
exactly.
hard.
Well, yeah, but it's a case of right.
Yes.
You have sex. You know, let's face it. You're on a promise. You're going to get some sex. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I really don't like that guy with her, but I'm going to get some sex. I'll fuck him up tomorrow.
But
I'm going to go and have some
I'm
sex
gonna
now.
fuck him up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
When you're
if I
having
get sex
sex, you're
again
definitely not
tomorrow,
interested. Yeah.
I'm not in a rush. Yes. Yes,
And
exactly.
if you've just had sex, you're like, fuck it, I'm okay with him. Actually, he's a bit of a dick, but I don't care. So what it comes down to is we
Yeah.
all just need a lot more sex in our lives, and that'll solve everything. Yeah.
I mean, what's really weird is so like through like friends and family, like I don't have any kids, but like through friends and family, I'm meeting, like I said, my buddy, he's here, right? Like I've known him for 20 years and his son is here, he's 18. Um, I'm meeting more people between the ages of like 17 and like 25, and very few of them are having sex. It's very strange. Like and it's not that they're deciding to switch like their choice in genders or whatever the fuck they want, or it's not that they're like even going like the crazy incel angry. Like these are relatively normal, actually like way more mature than I was at their age, but they're just sort of opting out. They're just like, no. And I'm like,
That's right.
how? I mean, like I've definitely been annoyed with the opposite sex. And believe me, they've been annoyed with me more. Let's just be fair. But how do you turn off the biologic imperative? But it seems like this whole generation has like, not all of them obviously, but like collectively sort of flipped a switch where they're just not out. They're not banging. I don't understand it. But it's just like they're just like, it seems more trouble than it's worth. And I'm like, okay, it's interesting. Yeah, blow your
Sean,
enemies
that's just
closer.
wrong.
That's
Yeah.
not. I mean, there's worse ideas. There's worse ideas, Sean. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah,
Hate sex, but
yeah,
yes.
Brian. So actually, Settlers of Catan. So I rented a storage space because I'm selling my house in Atlanta, and Settlers of Catan made it into it made it into the I'm bringing it in October thing because another very cool thing that I found about Europe, games are a very common thing among adults. I'll randomly be at a bar and see people playing cards or whatever. Like the collective sort of just sit down together thing seems like it's happening more out here than I've seen it happen in the US for a long, long time. Yeah.
It's a very big thing in Europe. Definitely,
Yeah.
it's really not in the UK, which is why for me it was so strange when I first started meeting people that were doing all this. But then you're like, this is wonderful because it brings people together and you have so much
It
more fun.
does. It
Here in
does.
the UK, it's basically heavy drinking and football, and
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, yeah, heavy drinking. And what is it? When I was looking for places in Portugal, my realtor said, because they drink a lot in Portugal, right? It's very normal to have like, if you're a couple, like you have a bottle of wine with lunch, you have a bottle of wine with dinner, which means you're having a bottle of wine a day. And it's fun and it feels great, but it's seen as like a problem, right, in the U.S. But everyone does it, and I met a bunch of other expats. This is what we call immigrants out here because I guess it sounds bougier. And like one of them was like, yeah, I brought that up at like a big party, and they were like, it was like, you guys notice we drink a lot, and everyone laughed, and one was like, I went to a doctor and asked, and she did her training in the U.S. has been out in Portugal for like 15 years, and she was like, yeah, I drink about a bottle a day, spread out throughout the day, and I just want to make sure it's not a problem. And the doctor was like, I hear you, but it's very cultural. She's like, let me ask you this: how many cigarettes are you smoking a day? And the woman was like, oh, I don't smoke cigarettes. And the doctor was like, get out of my office. What are you complaining about? Go drink more.
yeah,
That's obviously. Um, but yeah, my realtor was like, yeah, the difference is that we drink to live, and
rather than
the
living the
Brits in
drink.
the US, you drink to die. That's you drink
Mm.
until you can't feel feelings anymore. And we drink to feel more feelings.
Yeah.
And it is a different approach. It's very normalized here, and also, maybe like the different chemicalization. Uh,
Mhm.
it's hard to find a bad bottle of wine out here, even if you're paying like 5 or 6, like euros. Um, but I found one, and I was taking a sip, right, and I was like, my girl was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't want to be dramatic, but this tastes like poison to me." And I don't know another way to say it. Like, my brain is telling me this is poison. And she goes, "That's ridiculous." But we had a friend there who knows a bunch about wine. And she's like, "Give me a sip." And she took a sip, and she goes, "This is a mass produced bottle. I can taste the preservatives that they put in this because they made this in a drum that was the size of half of a football field."
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it is." And now a lot of the foods that I eat when I go back to the States, they have the same sort of vibe. So it's sort of hard to be like, what is healthy and what isn't when you have so many variables going on, as opposed to just doing it out here. Because I mean, like, I'm a doctor. Like, I get my level, every medical measurement we have, I get those done like every 4 months. And every number I have is getting healthier, drinking a bunch and just being out here and
You bastard.
eating cheese and salted meats and all sorts of stuff. Not what we're telling them to go on the Atkins diet. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, when you mentioned before about Monjaro, I went on it, and
yeah,
Jesus, it did not work for me. I lost a bit of weight,
yeah. So,
but it was the reactions that I had to it was just nasty.
yeah,
I, we found out afterwards that the reason for this was I was eating red meat, and red meat on
hmm,
it, your body really can't process.
yeah,
So, if for anybody, if you are going to go on Monjaro, and again, obviously I'm not a medical professional, but I'm still saying, this is not advice to do it. If you are going to go on it, please, for the love of God, don't have fucking burgers. Don't have red meat because it's just not a nice experience. It
yeah.
rots inside of you, and for like 3 days, you're just seriously ill.
Yeah, it's like the Munjaro. I mean, it's a more complicated chemical pathway that I think they're still learning about. But basically, it puts you more in line with like what your biology would do, right? So like, I was always hungry. I was never not thinking about food, just constantly. And it didn't really appetite suppress me as sort of appetite align me, I think. Because like, I love food more now than I did in the past because I used to just gorge. Like, Louis
Mm.
C.K. had a joke where like, he's overweight, and his doctor was like, "You got to lose weight." And he goes, "Obviously, dude." And the doctor's like, "Well, what happens when you're full?" And he's like, "I don't stop eating when I'm full. I stop eating when there's enough shame that I can't reasonably put more food into this hole. And when the shame lowers, I start putting food in the hole again." Um, and I knew exactly what he meant. Exactly. Um,
Wow,
yeah,
I'd
it's
never thought of that side of it.
I mean, that's really like, because I don't think I'd felt full in like 15 years, because I would finish eating and then think about what I wanted to eat for the next meal, and I would be on my phone being like, "What am I going to order?" or "What do I want to blah blah blah," constantly, just constantly. And it's not like I don't have, because I personally believe I'm an addict, and I believe 4 out of 5 Americans are addicts, which is why 4 out of 5 Americans are obese. We have fattest country in the world with the most money. Doesn't make sense. Um, but like, I personally believe we're addicts. I believe that the food and drug industry out there, it was intentionally done because no cocaine dealers are like, "How am I going to sell all this cocaine?" Like, that's basically the same thing.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, like, it basically broke that pathway. It was kind of a nicotine patch for food for me. Which, again, this is not a recommendation from a doctor. This is a personal testimonial. Talk to your doctor. Um, but I think it saved my life personally. I think I was 5 years away from a bad outcome, whether it was a heart attack, a stroke, or something. I was 302 pounds, uh, and miserable. Um, and now I'm 216 pounds and hopeful. It was night and day. It was night and day for
yeah.
me. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, just in the time that I've known you, from meeting you the first year, meeting you afterwards, you've lost so much weight, dude. You do look so fucking healthy. You fucking rat
I am.
bastard.
I am. I mean, it's crazy, right? Like, and I hated me too. And for the longest time, I would want to talk to people about it. And be like, and look, I know this sounds like some hippy dippy crystal blah blah, but I'm telling you. And I even have this like catchphrase. And I was like, and you need to understand, like, remember who I am. I am a barbecue and boobs and Van Damme and bar fights dude. Like I am a frat boy. Like I am telling you though that like I've seen it. I have lived it. It feels different. And like it took a year. Like I mean, it took more than a year. Like I'm down 85, 80. I haven't even weighed myself in a little bit. But like 80 something pounds, almost 90 pounds. And like yeah, like it took a year, but like I feel like I bought myself another 20, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. It sucks. Like there's this South Park where Cartman wants to go on Mounjaro, but like, his family's like poor. So they were like, oh, we have something else for you. And he's like, oh, there's a better, like, you have a less expensive drug. He's like, no, we can prescribe you Lizzo on Spotify. So like, and she's a very large black woman. And it's like, and so like, you'll just feel better about yourself. And then he starts crying. He goes, and I was going to lose weight and live longer, but I'm poor. So all I get is Lizzo. And it's just this sort of like ridiculous, stupid thing, but it's true. Like my drug habit of buying Mounjaro was probably more than some heroin addicts. It probably costs more.
But then you look at the difference
Yeah,
in the system as well, because if for me to order it here because it's not prescribed, so I can pay for it, but
yeah,
I can't. I mean, I could go to my doctor and I might be able to get it prescribed because of my size, or might not. Don't know. I
hmm
have to still go through a medical examination, so I have to put in
hmm
my details and so on. But then I can get it. I can pay for it directly from a pharmacy. The
yeah,
difference is that if I order it and I pay for it directly from a pharmacy here in the UK, it's
hmm
£150
okay,
per month dose
okay,
for £150, and it's like
yeah,
$1,100 in the US.
yes, and you can get a
And yet,
coupon for half of that, but that's still $600. And the statistic in the U.S. it's something I can't remember, but it's either it's a horrible number either way, but it's like either like 50% of Americans, which is 165 million Americans, or 70% of Americans, which do the math yourself, cannot handle an emergency. And the way they define an emergency is something that requires $400 until the age of like 60. So like when 70% of Americans are trying to live their lives in such a way that they can handle an emergency and they can't even handle that. And that's still 2/3 of the discounted price. Like that's messed up. Right. And I'm a doctor and I'm telling you, like, one of the most common questions was like, I'd be like, hey, you need this. You're going to die. And then they would be like, well, how much is the insurance going to cost me? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Like, I don't understand my insurance for when I need to go to the doctor because
yeah,
that's not a covered class in medical school. I know that you'll die if you don't do this, but I don't
yeah.
know if they're going to take your house afterwards. Um, and the most common cause of bankruptcy in the United States is health care, which is messed up too. Um, but anyway, I feel like people are tuning in because they want to hear about your books and my books. So we can
Oh,
like switch to that if you
well,
want. I don't know.
we'll switch to books, but yeah, it was
Okay.
live action Avatar Airbender. So Ryan's asking there. All right, I'll ask the question he wants to hear. What do you think of the live
Yeah.
action Avatar Last Airbender?
So
Did
I
you
have,
watch
I
it,
have
Dave?
not watched it. Yeah. Have you watched it? Is it any good?
We saw. I think it's. We saw. I think 2 episodes, Chrissy and I,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah.
stopped. Not for any reason. It was just like it was crap. It was just like, all right, yeah, that was okay. But we really wanted to watch something else that came out, and we just never went back to it. It was all
Yeah. And I
right,
mean, like,
but
it's so late. Like, Avatar was huge. We've already had the spinoff of Avatar that's finished. Like, it's so late in the game. Like, I don't know. It seems like you want to hit that a little faster.
yeah,
Yeah.
like 5, 10 years ago. It's like they're
Yeah,
redoing
exactly.
Harry Potter. They're redoing Harry
Are
Potter
they?
now. Oh yeah, the whole thing, but they're making it into a series, and it's going to
Okay.
be 7 years. So every single book, but it's going to be over like a full series for each book.
Okay.
So it's going to be the full book though, rather than the films, and were much condensed. There was a load of stuff cut out, so
Okay.
it'll be interesting. But again, this is stuff that came out 20 years ago,
Yeah. Now I feel like
and
Harry
it's
Potter is like broke the mold. I bet I bet that'll crush
oh, it's
no
still
matter
crush,
what.
but
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
but like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I personally have a big problem with the film industry and that there's so many amazing stories out and people, and I guess, and it's safer to just reboot stuff, maybe, right? Like it's safer to do that than to do new stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's got to be some money reason. Uh,
Yeah,
but there's so many amazing stories, and I feel like we're addicts to content. I feel like they couldn't make enough content where they wouldn't make money.
yeah,
But again, I feel like the standard is we don't need to make $10 million. I'm going to wipe my ass with $10 million. I need to make $500 million, and they're just not going to get out of bed for that. And I don't know. It seems short sighted. It seems like they're leaving a lot of money on the table. They could probably break up some of these massive projects and make like 50 projects out of them. But
yeah,
I'm not an executive, so.
yeah. It's a weird thing. Since we're talking about TV and movies, Aleron, have you thought any more about having your works adapted to live action or animated?
Yeah, so I mean, let me give it a shout out to Will White, right? Like I feel like Will's out
Yeah.
there. He's got his animated stuff coming up. I read his books before when he was a younger inkslinger. And I personally feel like Will is out there breaking through walls for the rest of us, and he's just a
Mhm.
really cool dude. So that I think that'll be really really cool. And he's working with Phil Lamar, who's one of the greatest voice actors of all time. Um, so I would love to do it. And my answer is always two things. One, Netflix, I'm totally willing to sell out. Let's just be really, really clear. We can get naked. We can make it weird. That's fine. We can figure out how this is gonna happen. Uh, but with that being said, which is absolutely a true answer. Another part of the true answer is I feel like people are very critical, especially like they're getting more critical, and I think that sucks. I love that Picard came out, even though like there were some things that didn't make sense. I love that it exists. I love creation, but there's some things that I hate. I hate reality TV, and I hate MTV teeny bopper stuff. So the fact that like Elfstones of Shannara came out as this MTV teeny
Ah,
bopper, it looked like you just went to Home Depot to make the kind of costumes kind of thing because you had pretty enough
mhm.
people. I would rather burn my books than have that happen. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm not the kind of person that needs to overly hold a lot of tight rules. If we're switching mediums, you can't make my main characters not black. That matters to me
Yeah.
for some reason. But other than that,
Strange like
like
that, aren't you?
I'm very very flexible. But no, I would love to happen. But honestly, what I think is probably going to happen, unless Will White's agent wants to hit me up, like like apps are becoming more and more popular. You and I, Jez, like we're getting more and more success. We're educating ourselves more and more about how to do this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I could see myself making my own studio in 5 years, or us collectively, like, or somebody doing it and like with really good, like, sort of options being like, hey, let's sort of knock this out. Um, like the barriers are becoming lower to create quality content,
Mhm.
and so I could see that happening.
Yeah,
But at the
the
same
world's
time,
changed drastically.
yeah, it's chastely I mean, what apps can do these days is stuff that like would have been cutting edge Hollywood stuff before. Cutting
Yeah.
edge. um so it just takes someone that has the wherewithal and the time and the, I don't know, I guess the will. For me personally, like I'm just really loving my life. I'm really loving writing again. I'm really loving creating the sort of modalities that I'm messing with. Um, so it probably won't be me making my own studio. It might be me finding an independent studio that's just, if there's the dude who came up at like, I don't know, Pixar and is like, I'm hanging up my own thing and I've always loved your books, and I'll be like, let's make that happen. I'm willing to take a chance and you're taking a chance on me. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be really cool. And I'm flexible, but anything but that MTV movie like Vampire
Yeah.
Diaries, which I definitely watched way too many episodes of that because I'm not made of wood. But anything but that.
Yeah. Shannara was
But
just such a fucking car
so
crash.
yeah,
Shannara was just
it's
horrible.
garbage.
So, dude,
Yeah,
so we
it's not
started
good.
talking
It's
before
not good.
about books. Hey, Sharon. So, the
Yeah.
first question I have to ask you, because I haven't yet managed to get my hands on a paperback or a hardback of the latest book, But I do have two
Yes.
hardbacks here. So what
Yeah.
I need to ask you about, right, is this little
Yeah.
badger here. Let's look at the width of it
Uh-huh.
here.
Yeah.
And let's look at the badger of this, right?
Yeah.
And let's look at the width of it.
Uh-huh.
What happened here, dude?
Well,
You
I
just went,
think
this is the perfect size for book one. No, 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 no. 5 times it.
well, so all right, so one, I think I fucked up the margins for God's Eye. And your lovely wife is helping me to actually get the hardbacks out for us, so that's cool. But also, when I was first starting writing, I've said it multiple times, I didn't think anyone would ever read it. I had this fantasy in my head as I was writing it that one day I would die and my grandkids would be throwing my shit out looking for money, and they would find this old Adidas box that had a manuscript in it, and maybe they would read it and be like, "Oh, my granddad was kind of cool," right? Um, so when I was writing my first book, I just kept writing, and then I was like, "How long are books supposed to be?" And I looked it up, and it said fantasy books are supposed to be 70,000 words, and I was at 78, and I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I've written a book," and that's basically what happened. And then I paid some guy on Fiverr who did a garbage job of formatting, and then I did it myself in like 2 days, not like looking on YouTube, and that's what happened. So there's been a lot of evolution since then, but
Yeah.
one of
I
the
know
interesting
exactly what
things
you
is
mean.
that yeah, right, like
It's-
it's the problem is when you love writing, not finding enough words to fill a book, but finding a way to condense your words enough that it's quality. That there's always more story to tell, right?
oh, yeah,
That's not the
definitely.
problem. It's having the right space in your heart and your mind to let the words out. So, yeah,
Yeah. Now, see, you're saying there about the margins. I obviously I've got both the books that I haven't noticed any issue with the margins, but when it comes to issues
yeah,
with the margins, right? This is the original, not for resale, one of mine. I'm going to show you
yeah,
how bad it is that I did the formatting for this one before Chrissy learned, and how
yeah.
much.
It's
Look at that.
so,
That's awful.
look at all
Look at
that
that.
white,
The
man. It's like Hugh
gaps.
Hefner's house.
The
It's crazy.
gaps.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's happening? Uh, but yeah, like you learn. I don't know, and then you kind of you get tighter and tighter. But I mean, that was sort of one of the big differences between indie and traditional, right? Like most of the stuff where they were offering is just stuff that like you could figure out yourself. It's just a pain in the butt. But once you figure it out, you know it forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like then we come up and we share more and blah blah blah, and now it's more professional. But I don't know. It's the business. The business of writing is entirely separate from the artistry of writing. Right. Being an
Definitely.
author and being a writer are two different skill sets. It's like being a doctor and a hospital administrator. So yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Sharon had asked there if you would ever consider doing an omnibus.
I honestly, it's the kind of thing that I would just need to talk to somebody that had done an omnibus and thought it was a good idea. It's I don't I like money. Let's just be really clear. I'm still an American. So like if there was a benefit to that, but I'm not a piece of shit. So like I don't want to gouge people or just like do a run on it. I'm interested in relationships with my fans and with the people that I work with that extend over decades, not just months. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would totally do it if it made sense. I mean, and honestly, like I'm planning on 10 years is right around the corner for me, and I'm planning to do some like fun Kickstarters, like the Dragon plushie, the Alma plushie, and some other fun things. Because again, Brandon Sanderson and Will White have sort of been breaking through those barriers for us, and all that. But yeah, I mean, like if it made sense, I'm not really stressed about it. But I'm also like investing myself in a lot of different areas. Like the less space on my face thing does take energy and effort. Like when I'm going on hikes, I'm like, was that 5 hours? Jesus, health is difficult. Like what the hell?
Dude.
um,
Yeah, screw that.
yeah,
Screw
and
that.
like I mean, even this, like moving to Europe, like you were very gracious. Like I totally nerfed and messed up our first meeting because I got mixed up at everything, and now I'm sitting outside of this closed bar. I don't think there's anyone here anymore. Like we're just, I think they just left the lights on for me because they were like, we can't leave this guy in the dark. I don't know. So,
Dude.
oh, there's a random guy. It looks like Bad Bunny. Just rolled out. Like he literally looks just like him. But
Well, come on then, dude. So let's talk about your new book. Come on, tell
okay,
everybody
cool.
about it. Talk. I mean, I've been reading
Yeah,
through, but I want to hear what you're thinking, what your plans are. Tell us all.
yeah. So I actually love the book. It came out exactly the way better than I wanted. So yeah, Alpha is in my universe, the AKU, the Aleron Kong universe, like also known as the Labyrinth universe. So it's sort of like in a side, not a side story. It's another tributary of stories, sort of the same way Ant-Man and Thor and Iron Man stories are part of the MCU, which was when I was starting writing. Like obviously the MC movies were coming up, and that was sort of one of my aspirations. Also the Star Wars universe, if you've read the books. Um, and so I didn't really know exactly how it was going to be, but I had always wanted to do something on Earth. I'd always wanted it to tie back into my primary series, The Land. And as I've matured as a writer, which I definitely think my writing is better now, also my understanding of the world has gotten a little bit more grim, a little bit more, might call it realistic, you might call it pessimistic. So I like the idea of a slow apocalypse. I enjoyed The Walking Dead, but I was like, why aren't we hearing more about what originally happened? I do not think that Fear of the Walking Dead did that well. I think that there's a lot of humanity to be examined in like seeing the collapse of power structures and what people do to hold on to them and how they make new ones and how like these new sort of things are reimagined. I think SM Sterling did that amazingly well with his Dies the Fire book, which is basically, if you guys
Yeah.
don't know, and it's an amazing series of books, it's just sort of what happens if electricity stops working. And there's massive die off because like I don't know if you guys remember COVID, but like those pantry shelves were bare a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And I think some people were murdered over toilet paper. We do not do well when we take away some of the creature comforts.
Yeah.
And I mean, even like, one of the things that they say in like Daniel Suarez's book, Damon, which is an amazing, not lit RPG, but lit RPG. When you're flying over the US and you see all those massive squares of green that are just corn, like those are a food desert. That is not corn that is made to be plucked off and eaten by you. That is made to be processed and turned into fuel and chicken nuggets and anything else, right? Um,
Mhm.
so it's like it's this desert where it's like as soon as we disrupt the mechanism that keeps all of us like these massive organizations and countries going, there's just no more food. And an amazing quote is this difference between civilization and anarchy is 3 meals. And if you've
Yeah.
ever seen someone that's hangry after one meal, I don't think that's a hard stretch. So that was basically what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of encapsulate the brutality and the beauty of humanity looking at a slow apocalypse. Alpha is sort of like seeing what happens when it's just now triggered, and the following books are going to sort of be looking at an expansion of the magic systems of like my overall universe, but also looking at what's happening on Earth and what people are doing and the villains and the heroes that rise. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. So yeah,
Yeah. The
and thank
families.
thank you fans for being there. Jesus, at
Yeah.
4 years I was concerned, but you guys came through. So
Dude, it's fucking brilliant. I mean, I really like the sort of the family as the way they're all. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Sean, my dude, see you later, man.
yeah,
Sean's
good seeing you, bro.
actually Sean's a lovely, lovely guy, but Sean's actually in the UK soon. So
Okay,
I met up with a fan a few weeks ago for some drink, for coffee, and meeting up with Sean. I think about 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time. I don't even know, but
yeah.
meeting up with him. So I'm looking forward to that. He's a lovely, lovely guy. So, oh, have they
Oh
turned
wait,
the
are
lights
you
off
there?
on you?
Sorry,
Yep.
there we go. There we go. I'm back. Yeah.
It's just like,
You see me? You see me? Yeah, there I am.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you were just coming in and out there. So, what's
Oh,
the
sorry.
plan then?
Good.
So,
Yeah.
what we're looking at with this book is there going to be? Are you going to be working on more in this series like sooner? Are you looking
Oh
at?
yeah.
I
No,
mean, I know there's
100%.
going to be
Yeah.
the curse, but book 9, I know that you're going to be
Yeah.
working on soon as well. I will say as well, I saw
Um,
that the video that you'd done where you'd finished it and then dropped the laptop and all.
Yeah, my buddy Simon, who's handling my social media at this point, he thought that'd be funny, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's have fun.
Yeah.
One of the things that one of the pitfalls I think I fell into when I was writing book 8 was just worrying too much about what people think. And it's like you can't. I'm not a big believer in pretending that we are like these island fortresses where there's no impact. But I do think that if you're having a good time, yeah, there's gonna be some dicks. But like in like there were some people that were like, and this is how why I'm never gonna read your stuff again. And I'm like, well, you're reading my comments. I just don't believe you that you're not gonna read when 9 comes out. But also, it's like if you really feel like that's then I get it, man. But I'm having a good time. Other people are having a good time. Nobody's forcing you to be at the party. Um,
It's different
like I
tastes for
get it.
different people. I
Yeah.
mean, it's massive. I'd had a recently, Josh Madu, I had a recent one where I've had 3 reviews that are complaining that I'm stuffing my books because I'm putting a synopsis at the beginning of the previous books.
Yeah.
But then I've had loads of
Like
people say, I wish you would do this. And so I've started doing it.
yes.
So you
Yeah.
can't keep everybody happy. There's no way you're
You
going to
can.
keep everybody happy.
You
So
can. It's and it's been like that forever. There's this amazing YouTube clip of oh my god, Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart reading legitimate 1-star reviews of Wonders of the World, where somebody was like, "Eiffel Tower, what's with all the holes?" Or pyramids couldn't do 5 sides, sucks. Like, like it's just a bunch of
yeah,
like idiots. And so the one thing that I do give grace is that life is really hard. Life be lifing, as me and mine say a lot. So, and I understand the the frustration of like going through Amazon back catalogs and lists endlessly, just praying for a new series. And like the best gold is like a series with 8 books from someone that you already like, where you're like, oh my god, for the next like week, I'm taken care of. I can have this release from
yeah.
the difficulties of blah blah blah. Right. So like I get that. And before I was a writer, I remember being very critical, like, all you do is write books. How hard is that? Like, imagine living my life. Go write some fucking books. Like, so like I get it. I really do. Obviously seeing it from the other side, I'm a lot more sympathetic to the plight of authors. But so like I understand it, but and I've said it multiple times that during my like time away, like the 4 years, right, where COVID sucked, but one of the things that happened is I saw this Indian comedian who apparently was so famous and was so popular that they put him in a Bollywood movie, and it was just the worst thing ever created. And one of the reviews was, this Bollywood movie is the worst thing to happen to India since England. And it was just a very difficult thing, I imagine, for an Indian man to hear.
Yeah.
And he was like, that really hurt my feelings, guys. I'm not going to lie. He's like, but what I realized is my art only belongs to me. It doesn't belong to any of you. But my fame only belongs to you, and it belongs to me not at all. And I was thinking that the two were the same. He's like, I don't need to be ignorant of things that build my fame any more than I need to be like a shield against things that feedback you give me about my art. But it belongs to me, and that belongs to you,
Yeah.
and
Because
it's
only
okay.
you can write your story. And if you
Exactly.
change it
Right.
to, because let's face it, if you, let's say that you would totally finished, right? So you've finished book 9, it's all done and it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And you decide, you know what, before I put it out there, I'm going to give it to 10 of my favorite fans. And I'm going to ask them what they
Hmm.
think. And all 10
Yeah.
of them, you ask to give you feedback. And then you would get 10 different points of view about things.
Yeah.
Now, 3 might say, I love this scene. 3 will say, I absolutely hate that scene. And 4 won't even
Yeah.
mention that scene at all.
Yeah.
And they'll be, oh, you should change this because it'll embrace this. No, 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 you should definitely do this. Don't do that. And what you'll end up with, if you listen to all that feedback and change it, is a completely different story. But it
Yeah.
wouldn't feel like you. It wouldn't be
No.
written as you. And people would then
Yeah.
go, this isn't right because it's
This is
not your
not.
story anymore. So
Doesn't feel
yeah,
right. Exactly. You're exactly right. You have to accept that it's going to be imperfect. Like I personally think that Brandon Sanderson is arguably the most prolific writer of our time. And he has these amazing YouTube tutorials about how to do like story structure and blah blah. And I've never watched a single one of them because I hold him on such a pedestal that if he said, "Oh, never do this," and that was something that I do that I enjoyed, it would just be ruined. It would just be this thing. Like you can't learn how to cook and have that like blonde dickhead that's always yelling at people be like, "Never do this." You're never gonna find something to your taste. You know, like it's a balance, like everything else in life, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Like I think there's always been people that are critical, all the people that don't like it, and that's cool. But yeah, the problem is thinking that we need to please everybody, and I think social media has done way more harm to good than to our society. And that's speaking as an indie author, which I don't think we would exist without social media. Personally,
Well,
there's no way we can compete with. Yeah,
there's a saying that like democracy is the worst governing system in the world, except for all the others.
Except for absolutely.
Like Amazon is an absolute nightmare. It's a terrible company, except it's the best game in town.
Except it's everything. Except you don't fuck with the Zon. Like,
yeah, never.
Yeah, that's it.
Please don't kill us.
Like, like thank you. Yeah, like all of it. Like whatever. And yet, I think they forgot they sell books. I honestly think they forgot they sell books. Yeah, I think that, like, there's this, Babylon 5, right? Five year, space opera. There's one scene that I always remember where one of the characters, Mulari, who's basically from like a Roman Empire kind of thing, he's talking about how there was a time that he was back on his homeworld and he was staying in one room and he looked out and he saw a soldier walk into the middle of an empty courtyard, stand there for 12 hours until he was relieved by another soldier. And he'd never seen this before because, their palaces span like the size of cities. But he watched and he watched and he watched and he was like, what the hell is this? What is going on? And he said that it took him like a month of going through old records until he learned that like 900 years ago in that courtyard, there was a bad winter a certain year. And a princess saw a single flower come up in the middle of that courtyard. And she ordered a soldier to go stand and protect that one flower because she liked to look at it. And nobody had ever rescinded the order. And so for 900 years, way after the flower was gone, way after the princess that had ordered it had died, just nobody had ever rescinded that order. So people had been holding court there. Amazon is so massive now, even though they began by selling books, like that's like what to them? They would probably wipe their butt with their whole book budget, right? It's a huge part of our lives. It's what makes this possible. But like it's an order given 900 years ago that so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm grateful, but yeah, I don't think they care really, personally.
Yeah, there's definitely a degree of that when there's mistakes made, and you just sort of go, okay, this has happened.
Hold on, I was getting a call. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
You can hear me. Yeah,
yes.
I can.
Yeah, I can hear you, dude.
Hold on. Did I lose you? Let me get back to this.
We can see you.
Yeah, I can't. Hold on, wait. No, I can't hear you at all, buddy. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was getting a FaceTime call. I canceled it, but no, I'm getting eaten up by bugs anyway. I should probably go. And my phone's good, but I love you, Jazz. I'm really happy that you exist. I'm happy you're in the culture. I love your books. I really do, and I'm happy to count you as a friend, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So, yeah. All right, bud. I'll talk to you later. Peace, love, for Bye.
Bye.